Keith Lee and WWE. This has been a huge story that broke late last night. So we don't usually do WWE full news videos. We do AEW and WWE news videos 5 days of the week. Always drops at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So be sure to check those videos out. We don't usually do them over the weekend, but I had to do this bit of WWE news here because it is such an incredible story. It is so typical WWE story, and it's the story that a lot of people are talking about on social media over the last few hours, and that is Vince McMahon reportedly throwing a fit over the working ability of certain main roster guys, specifically one being Keith Lee. Now, Vince McMahon, WWE Chairman, was reportedly not thrilled with some of the main roster performers in recent weeks and months. According to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Vince McMahon reportedly, quote, threw a fit over the working ability of certain main roster guys. McMahon was reportedly mad in particular about some of the big guys. Furthermore, McMahon reportedly ordered some of them back to the WWE Performance Center for 2 classes per week, with WWE official and producer Adam Pearce and WWE Raw superstar Drew Gulak as the instructors of the classes. Now, previously, by Meltzer, it was not stated who the performers were or when the incident had happened, but this was expanded on by Mike Johnson at PW Insider, who not only confirmed the report, but he revealed the names that were sent back to the WWE Performance Center for such classes. He reported that Otis, Keith Lee, Dabba-Kato, Dio Maddin, and AJ Styles' bodyguard Omos are among the names that WWE is looking to, quote, refine inside the ring. Those talents are taking part in training sessions at the WWE Performance Center on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Johnson was also noted that Arturo Ruas needed, quote, additional seasoning despite being drafted by Raw during the WWE draft. Ruas faced Kushida on the November 18 episode of NXT and suffered an arm injury in the bout. Now, this storyline, this it should be a storyline because it's absolutely insane, but we also got some other news about it, some reaction backstage from it from Fightful Select. I'll give you my opinion on it in a second, but it kind of echoes this opinion backstage when it comes to the reaction to this report. So Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp, it's their Patreon service. Be sure to check that out. Well worth the subscription fee. They have spoken about further details about how some of the people backstage in WWE have reacted to Vince McMahon's decision to send the likes of Keith Lee, Otis, etc. back to the Performance Center for 2 days a week to do classes because he wasn't happy about their working ability. Now, it won't come to a surprise to many watching this video to hear that people backstage in WWE are scratching their heads when it comes to this decision. Former NXT champion Keith Lee is considered one hell of a worker by many of his co-workers in WWE, and the only crumb of comfort is that he may only be grouped with the others because of his physical size. Now, this could be part of a grander plan to tighten up how larger men in the WWE are working. Note the word could there. This is obviously speculation right now, but it makes sense. Now, Fightful did say that some of the wrestlers were, quote, baffled by Keith Lee's inclusion. They're also reporting that concerns were raised, though, over how stiff Otis has been in the ring recently, and that neither Dio Maddin and Omos were surprising picks for this refining of their ability in the ring. Now, when I saw this story, you know, when I basically echo what was said by those WWE superstars. When it said the likes of Dio Maddin, Omos, Arturo Ruas, you know, Dabba-Kato, that's not really much of a surprise. If you have seen them work, you would probably say a bit green. Maybe they shouldn't have been called up to WWE TV, the main roster, this soon anyway, especially for the likes of Dabba-Kato. He wasn't really working in NXT. Now, that's not to say that he's not a great worker, but certainly doesn't have the seasoning of people in NXT would have. Otis, maybe he's a bit stiff, and maybe that is a complaint from the talent. If talent have been complaining to Vince McMahon, what can you do, really? If he's working stiff, then maybe he's been asked on a couple of occasions, and maybe he does need to go back for some additional seasoning. The Keith Lee inclusion is absolutely baffling, and it was just so eye-rolling. It's so eye-rolling because it all makes sense now. Keith Lee, since he has been drafted or called up to the main roster, whatever you want to call it, from Raw, his treatment has been just staggering. This is a guy that not only was the NXT champion, he was the first ever person to hold the NXT championship and the North American championship. He won it at the Great American Bash earlier this year for NXT. This guy was on top of the world, and all of those reports, right? All of those reports prior to that, since his showdown with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series last year, since that incredible last 5-10 minute square off that he had with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, and then the confrontation he had with Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble earlier this year, all of those reports, Vince McMahon, he's such a big fan of Keith Lee. He's fallen in love with Keith Lee. He is the biggest fan of Keith Lee. Once Keith Lee comes to the main roster, Keith Lee's going to be shot to the moon. He's going to make all of this money. And then ever since Keith Lee has moved over to the main roster, all we've seen is just bizarre changes, bizarre decisions. Changing his entrance music, I get it, the CFO deal. But him wearing a tight shirt because Vince McMahon doesn't like that Keith Lee is fat when he's not fat. He doesn't like that Keith Lee wore those trunks. He had these sort of weird loose shorts on that looked like a skirt for ages. It wasn't Keith Lee anymore. And then we see this documentary that comes out last week that Vince McMahon, as soon as Keith Lee gets backstage, oh, you're amazing, you're amazing. Got to make some changes there. We have a global audience. We need to change. We need to find you. Maybe the you that he is was found in NXT. Keith Lee is one of the best names in the roster. He's one of the best workers on the roster. His gimmick is that he's limitless, right? He's limitless. The whole deal, the same with Dominik Dijakovic. They are big men that can do things that people half their size can do or even can't do. He is one of the best big men in the business because he has this ability to work every style. And I know that in the 1980s or even prior to that, big man shouldn't be doing leapfrogs and a big man shouldn't be doing a moonsault and a big man shouldn't be doing this, doing that. I get it. That was the psychology of being a big man at that period of time. It's 2020 though. It's not 1980 anymore. Times have changed. Psychology has changed. Presentation of pro wrestlers have changed. They've changed because of people like Keith Lee, because of the ability to do that incredible stuff. And this idea that Vince McMahon wants Keith Lee to work like a big man, his gimmick is that he is limitless, right? His gimmick is that he can do anything, and you're trying to change that. And once again, it just reinforces my point. The NXT system in WWE fundamentally does not work. It does not work. There is an obvious disconnect there. There is obviously an issue with NXT, between NXT and WWE and Vince McMahon and Triple H or whatever. Because it's time and time and time again. This NXT problem when it comes to the main roster. Talent is so successful in NXT. They get over, they refine their character, they have their way of working, they have their way of walking, talking, they have their gimmick, they have whatever makes them get over and get popular in the first place. Then fans get all excited. I can't wait to see this gimmick on the main roster because this has got them so popular, this is so engaging. Then they go to Raw or SmackDown, and minute by minute, day by day, or episode by episode, we see these changes. We see these, they start off subtle, but eventually it becomes a completely different character, completely different person. We have the entrance music change. We have the way they talk change. We have their, if they're a babyface or a heel change. We have their look change. We have their gimmick change. It gets to the point where whatever made them successful, whatever made them popular in NXT in the first place is gone. And Keith Lee's a great example of this. He was popular in NXT for being limitless, having this great gimmick where he could do all of this incredible stuff. He was an amazing worker. He was still a fundamental strong big man because he was strong and he could have all these power moves, but he could have these great matches too. He had this presence in the way he spoke. His cadence was different, the way he spoke. It all worked. And then once again, he goes to the main roster. Whatever made him popular in the first place, ideally the way that he worked in the ring, is being changed, in addition to the entire presentation of Keith Lee. Whether it is the music, whether it is his gear, whether it is now the way that he works in the ring. Now he's not allowed to do all the Keith Lee stuff. He's got to work like a big man, damn it. It's all of these changes, and it strips away any identity that they built in this period of time. And it goes to show NXT doesn't work. I don't agree with any of these changes that Vince McMahon does to NXT talent. Whether it's just calling, Matt Riddle, or now being annoying and handing out donuts, whether it's changing Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance music and turning him into a heel, whether it's having Bobby Roode as one of the top heels in NXT and starting him off as a babyface, whether it's anything like that, all of these changes he has made to these characters when they come from NXT to the main roster, whether it's EC3 throwing him out in the cold, Aleister Black turning him heel, changing everything about him, not using him, not booking him because he's got something missing. The thing that's missing is all the stuff you took away from him that got him popular and made him over in NXT. The changes every single time are dumb and they don't make sense, but it speaks to this larger issue, which is this obvious disconnect between Vince McMahon and NXT. It's plainly obvious at this point. Vince McMahon does not like NXT, which has to make you question, what is NXT's purpose? What is its purpose at this point? The whole point of NXT and the Performance Center was because WWE's developmental system in previously wasn't that great. I mean, you had FCW or you had OVW. OVW was actually incredibly successful. Nevertheless, FCW, it did make certain stars for WWE, but there was a handful of stars under contracts, developmental deals. They had a warehouse in Florida they could work out of. They shot TV, but NXT was meant to be next level. Okay, we're going to do like they do in the NFL or in any other sporting sphere, where we're going to make our stars. We're going to have this homegrown facility where people can learn. People can come in to learn the WWE style, the way to walk down the ramp, the way to cut a promo, the way to refine their character, and it would get stars ready for the main roster. You would have ready-made characters. There would be this smooth transition. We wouldn't have this issue about creating stars or not having stars ready-made. We would have this pool of talent that would be so ready and refined that the transition from NXT to Raw or SmackDown would be so smooth. But where is this smooth transition? It's never there. It's never there. Why? Because Vince McMahon, with any NXT talent, once he gets his hands on them, he makes changes. And everyone used to say, well, why does Vince McMahon make these changes? Why does Keith Lee suddenly have to wear a singlet now? Why does he have to wear baggy shorts? Why does he have to change his entrance music? Why is Bobby Roode debuting as a babyface? He was a heel. Why are all of these changes happening? And we saw in that little clip from the Keith Lee 24 documentary on the network where Vince McMahon says, oh, you're great, but we have a global audience. Need to make some changes. Need to make it more adaptable to our global audience. That is obvious that he does not like what he sees in NXT. Vince McMahon sees what happens in NXT. He sees the product. He sees the characters. He sees the presentation, and he goes, oh, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work for the global audience. We need to change it. Therefore, the entire NXT system doesn't work. I'm a huge fan of NXT. I'm a huge fan of the presentation. I'm a massive fan of Keith Lee. I'm a massive fan of the NXT version of Keith Lee. In the same way that I was a massive fan of the NXT version of Aleister Black and Shinsuke Nakamura and Bobby Roode, and I can list all of these names over and over and over again. But if they're not being built in this image of Vince McMahon and they're not having this transition to the main roster, NXT doesn't work. Now, that's not to say NXT shouldn't Vince McMahon shouldn't take over NXT, because he shouldn't. There is obviously, though, a disconnect between Vince McMahon and Triple H/NXT. They have different philosophies, and because of that, we get, as a fan base, we get attached, and we become fans of a character and of a presentation of a Keith Lee in NXT, and when it gets transferred to the main roster and it gets changed, we're so dissatisfied because that's the Keith Lee we want. If you're WWE at this point, why are you conditioning audiences through NXT to be associated and to be invested in this character when they're going to be changed? It shows that this system does not work. These are not ready-made stars for the main roster, because if you're going to make changes, by proxy, by definition, if you make changes, it's because there is something that needs to be fixed in the eyes of Vince McMahon. Therefore, you have to question NXT's purpose and the Performance Center's effectiveness. And you have to question the effectiveness of that entire system if it doesn't make the talent in the image of Vince McMahon that he wants to see. And again, this isn't saying that I support Vince McMahon's changes or Vince McMahon's decision to send Keith Lee to the Performance Center, because I really don't. I disagree with nearly every single change that he's ever made when it comes to an NXT superstar. It's dumb. Why make the changes to the talent and strip them of everything that makes them over and popular in the first place? But you do have to question, if this was any other form of business, you'd be looking at these issues. If you were Vince McMahon, you'd be looking at these issues and going, why am I having to make these changes every time? Surely I should be looking at NXT, seeing what issues I have in my warped mind, making them then before they get onto the worldwide global television, he would say. And again, I've been saying this for months. Does the Performance Center in NXT work? Nope. It does not work. It's been around since, 2013 or 2012? It doesn't work. When is the last homegrown top male talent that has come through NXT and actually thrived on the main roster? And there isn't. There really isn't many. Braun Strowman might be the biggest homegrown name that they've made in the time of the Performance Center in NXT. And Braun Strowman didn't even appear on NXT. Any other name that has had success in NXT and on the main roster, they either came from FCW, people like Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose. They were there well before NXT. And other names that have had success on NXT and the main roster, they either came from the indies, so they weren't made by WWE. They were guys from Impact Wrestling or wherever. Or you got guys like Drew McIntyre that, again, came from FCW. He might have even been in OVW. He was there that long. Or Deep South or something like that. You got Drew McIntyre, who was fired and he came back. And again, was he homegrown by NXT and the Performance Center? No, he wasn't. He was already there with WWE way back when. When is the last time they produced that big male star? They haven't. They just haven't. The system doesn't work. Now, the female side of things, of course, that has worked. You've got names like Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Bayley, etc. All of those big names. I wouldn't put Asuka in there because she was made somewhere else. But you've got those names that absolutely, yeah, they were made in WWE and they came through the Performance Center, the NXT system. That worked for them. It works for the female talent. But for the male side of things, when was that last big talent they made that was homegrown? Braun Strowman. And if that's your level, if that's your ceiling, then what have you been doing the last 7 years? What has that system been doing? It certainly hasn't been making stars because Vince McMahon feels the need to change it every single time. They can't make homemade stars. This is why there is this huge disconnect between Vince McMahon and NXT. The system does not work. And this Keith Lee decision now is just the latest example of that. The Keith Lee stuff is ridiculous. Arguably, he's one of the best big men in pro wrestling right now. The fact he has to go to the Performance Center twice a week to refine his skills and know how to work as a big man is ludicrous. It's laughable. And again, you're stripping away, once again, the things that make him Keith Lee, the things that made him popular. The things that got him over in the first place. First it was his entrance music, then it was his gear. Now it's the way he works. He's just going to be generic cookie cutter. And eventually Vince McMahon will go, he's missing something, and then get rid of him, and he's doomed in the mid-card forever. And the thing that he's missing, ironically, is all the things you took away from him. Everything that made him unique and you stripped away from him will then get the report in a couple of months' time. Vince McMahon just thinks Keith Lee's missing something. He's missing what you took away. That's always the problem. In the same way that Aleister Black, oh, he's just missing something. He's missing the identity that you removed from him. That's how it's always worked. It's the same cycle. It repeats itself over and over again, and it goes to show this disconnect between Vince McMahon and NXT. It doesn't work. The irony being that a report came out 24 hours prior to this report saying Keith Lee was going to be in a featured match at WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Now it comes out and says that Keith Lee's in the Performance Center twice a week refining his skills because Vince McMahon isn't happy. That is just, I guess, a day in the life as a WWE superstar, but it's absolutely insane to me. It's absolutely insane. Nevertheless, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Keith Lee and others having to go back to the WWE Performance Center to refine their skills in the eyes of Vince McMahon? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, NXT, all that fun stuff. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Get involved with the community and share your opinion. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really just help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.